Welcome to Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter with Chris Bornstead and Kyle Torgerson in studio today. It is Wednesday, May 16th, and we've been having some lovely weather outside, haven't we, here in Washington?
Definitely, we definitely have.
Anybody who's been following us up to date, you know, there's always seems to be this steady diet of complaining about weather here in Washington, but not this week. It's been gorgeous. Tell us what's coming up on the forecast.
You say not this week, but you see, this week, there will be clouds. Today will be a high of 66 and a low of 50, or a low of 52. It will be cloudy today, but the rest of the week, it looks like it will be partially cloudy or sunny, depending on what day it is.
This just isn't enough sun for me.
It is not enough sun. It seems like next Tuesday will be a high of 80, and the lowest day looks like it'll just be tomorrow and Friday. So Thursday and Friday, low 48.
Very nice. So that's our weather report. We've got, for those of you who thought you were sunned out, well, we got a little cloud cover for you in a few of these days.
Just all that work on the pool for one day.
Okay, well, we have all kinds of fun stuff on the show here today. You know what? There's isn't stuff that goes on in our world around us, particularly as it has to do with anything political. There's all these really funny forms of hypocrisy and whatever that happens. Well, we're gonna start this off because we're gonna have a little bit of conversation about immigration. We want to share with you what some of the Black Californians had feedback to the city of Santa Clarita on what they think about immigration and
I'm sure about this, but I think you're just supposed to say Californians.
I've worked with a ton of Black Americans and have a ton of Black American friends, and not a single one of them have ever been offended
I know that.
by me calling them a Black American or them calling me a white American, and we're perfectly fine with that because we actually have eyeballs and we can see, and we're fine with the distinction of color.
I actually prefer to be called Cracker, but you know, hey.
You like to be called Cracker? Okay, whatever.
No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
No, this is good stuff here, you guys.
All right, so let's share what these citizens in Santa Clarita had to say about they're talking about, so people know, they're talking about California SB 54, and this is the declaration of the state of California to be a sanctuary state for illegal immigrants. Check it out.
Today is May the 8th, 2018. We are in Santa Clarita. Later on tonight, the City Council is going to vote as to whether or not to oppose SB 54, the California Sanctuary State. If they do oppose it, they will be the first city in LA County to do so.
I apologize that I don't have much voice.
Make your message be heard.
So we've been talking
Take her
a
to a
lot
mental health institution right after this.
about SB 54. Let's put aside the emotion, the pandering, the false sadness and outrage of racism, blah, blah, frickin' blah. And let's focus on the actual facts here. It has nothing at all. And again, I apologize that I sound like a frog, but I've been fighting for this, and I've been having to tell some people off. And it's costing my voice. But let's talk about the facts here, people. Nothing to do with race. I'm a Black woman. I am what you call an African American, and a daughter of immigrants, a granddaughter of immigrants. Not from Mexico, but from the islands, from St. Croix, where they couldn't just walk across the border, whistling Dixie as they did, violating our Constitution, raping our Constitution, and in many cases, raping our people. The Black community is most adversely affected by illegal alien activity. Because when these people, and I don't care if they're Swedish, Mexican, Nigerian, Nicaraguan, Arab, I don't care. When you come here illegally, they don't get trucked into Brentwood. They don't get trucked into Beverly Hills. Hell, they only get trucked into the fairly modest upper class suburb where I live. They get trucked into Watts. Here in California and SoCal, they get trucked into the streets of Crenshaw, the jungles, East LA. A lot of black people don't have the privilege that I have. A lot of black people are already suffering academically. Thus they suffer economically. Thus they suffer in immense, abject poverty and crime. Their schools are beyond a disgrace already. They are highly more likely to drop out. And when those schools get pumped with illegal aliens, they're even more likely to drop out. School books, textbooks have to then be money spent to translate them in Spanish because the illegal alien minors cannot speak the King's English. I, as an American citizen, born and raised in Los Angeles, cannot get a job if I want something different than what I do, which is fight for American people. I have to learn 2 languages, specifically Spanish, in my own country. You tell me how that's fair. Not to mention, we've talked about how it's racist. We're splitting up families. Well, several of my fellow patriots have already mentioned that the permanent split up of mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, who cannot just cross the border and go visit their family and support it. They gotta go to the grave. You tell me how that's fair. Before you lose your family, you
This is degenerating.
Can you hear me okay? Yes, Kathy Robinson. I'm so grateful to be here today. I am a native Californian. I lived here all my life. I feel that I'm very blessed. I'm happy to be an American. I just want to say I'm not for the sanctuary law, because to be for the sanctuary law means that you support lawlessness, the double standard that we have. So me as an African American woman, if I'm stopped and I get a ticket or I'm supposed to go to jail, I'm going to go to jail. But the person that's an illegal alien, they're going to get off. So I'm against that. I'm against rape. I'm against the lost jobs that we have because of illegal immigrants, or illegal aliens that are here. And the flip side of that is that we have so much homelessness. If you go downtown LA, Los Angeles Street, you'll see how many people, American people, are in the streets because of this. I hate the disrespect that so many leftists have against our government, against our laws. I hate that. What I am for is to enforcing our laws. I'm for the wall. I'm for legal immigration. And then Americans are dreamers too. We have dreams too. Because of the illegal aliens that are here, our dreams are going to them and less to us. Another thing, I want to just address the racism, that word. What does that mean? You guys don't know what racism means. I know what it means. I'm African American. My family members were slaves back in the day. We came here, we were brought here not by our own will. We have citizenship. We have every right to be here. If you guys want to be here in our country, come the way that you should come. Come the right way. Become citizens. We're not saying you shouldn't be here. But you know what? Guess what? Guess what? We're paying for welfare, for Section 8. You're costing us our jobs. We're paying for you. We're losing so much money. Come the right way. You are not entitled to be here. And if you like your flag so much, get out of the country. We don't want you here. Respect Americans. This is America. This is our home. This is our country.
All right, so that's what these California citizens had to share. Now, there are many more that are on this same video, and there's actually several other pieces of footage as well. Interesting that this perspective comes from the black community. And what we're seeing more and more on social media, Facebook, YouTube, etc., is more black Americans waking up to this kind of nonsense going on in our country. And they're sick and tired of it. And I absolutely love that they're standing up and speaking for themselves instead of somebody saying, here's what the black community wants or here's what the black community thinks. I love it that these people are standing up with courage and speaking their mind.
Do we know how the vote went? Did they vote to keep it?
We can find that out.
Because I'd like to know how they voted, because they were going to vote that evening. And then also, clearly, these ladies need to get together with Diamond and Silk and Kanye.
Yes,
and
they
need to form some kind of pack to let people know that there's more people that think like them. I read a little bit more. I'm not a big Kanye fan, but I read a little about what he went through the first time that he mentioned that he kind of supported Trump. They went out and stuck him in an insane asylum, and they put him there for quite a while. And the first thing that he did when he got out was went right straight to Trump Towers. This is what I read in the article. So, you know, these people are waking up and realizing that the Democratic Party has been using them for a long time, and that if the progressive gets their way, they'll be cast aside altogether, and the Hispanics will be the new African Americans.
And to be fair, when we're talking about Democratic Party, we're talking about the progressive left, because that's where really a lot of that kind of leadership is coming from.
Listen, the Democratic Party has not been their friend up until this point. In fact, they've kept them down.
Oh, what I'm saying is the
progressive left is going more extreme and just kicking them to the curb, and they are going to bring in these stuff, you know, the Hispanics, because it's going to be the new voting base for the Democratic Party. The unions are already looking at them as the future of the unions, and so again, the people that have been here the longest, which are, you know, us, African Americans, Indians, they're all being thrown aside and cast aside, and we are making way for this new class of citizens that come here illegally.
And that class of illegal citizens, illegal immigrants, are being harvested for the purpose of generating a new voter base. Really,
and again, this you know, and people say this. I see it online all the time. It's not my personal statement, so don't get angry with me. But you see this online a lot is who's going to pick the fruit and who's going to mow your lawns and stuff like that. And you know what? It's called job creation. Those job opportunities are now open for people to go out and get them if we pull back on this. Whether you go out and get those jobs or do that and pick that fruit or mow the lawn or do yard work, that's up to you.
Yeah, those are all extremely weak arguments for why the country should be and why states should be violating our own laws. Speaking of all of that, when has state law or when has federal law ever become philosophy? It's not. Well, we're going to get a chance to listen to Senator Patty Murray here describe law as philosophy. This is a exchange that happened here on C-SPAN between Senator Patty Murray here from Washington and the DHS Director Nielsen. Check out how many times Nielsen has to remind Patty Murray what law actually is.
I just have to say I'm really disappointed in this administration's treatment of our immigrants and religious minorities and many others. I can't say I'm shocked. I listened to President Trump's rhetoric during the campaign, but I am disappointed, and I'm going to keep standing with these families across our country to fight back, whether we're talking about dreamers who've come out of the shadows to participate in the DACA program, or whether we're talking about TPS recipients who've been part of our communities for decades. There are families who are being torn apart at our borders today, and we're banning people from visiting our country merely because of their religion. So I just want to state I disagree with this administration on every step of the way. But I today wanted to focus my questions to you on one of the more damaging decisions. In December, acting in secret, ICE changed how it would treat pregnant women in their custody. And the new policy means that a lot more pregnant women will be stuck in detention for a longer period of time, often with inadequate support, whether it's nutrition or medical care or prenatal care. And in response to that, the American Academy of Pediatricians, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and the American Academy of Family Physicians wrote to you saying that detention, quote, puts the health of women and adolescents and their pregnancies at great risk. And they go on to explain something that should be obvious. Detention facilities do not offer the level of care that pregnant women need. Now, on top of the real consequences to these pregnant women, for months the departments didn't even tell Congress about this inhumane and dramatic policy change. And when this new policy change was finally posted on your website, the question and answer page included a question stating, and I quote, "Isn't detaining pregnant women a human rights abuse?" Well, your question and answer page raised the question, and I think the answer is pretty clear. When your department is doing something that is wrong and misguided and, in my opinion, cruel and an embarrassment to our country, I think it's wrong, and I really urge you to reverse course on this. I know it's wrong. I think you should, but I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. Can you truthfully tell us that detention facilities offer the same level of care to pregnant women as a hospital or other medical facility that's designed to care for pregnant women?
What I can tell you is we screen every female, for pregnancy from ages 18 to 56 when we encounter them. We provide them prenatal care. We provide them separate housing. We provide them specialists. We will take them to appointments if they need to go somewhere else. We provide them counseling, and we provide them religious.
Okay, but they are in detention facilities. Do you know how many pregnant women are detained today?
I don't know how many, no ma'am, but I will say the reason they're detained is because they illegally crossed our border.
Okay,
if they went to a port of entry, that would not be a crime. So I would like to encourage those who are
pregnant. Let me just tell you, I'm short on time. I have another question, but I will tell you, you're just trying to discourage pregnant women. They don't come here because they're pregnant.
No, I'm trying to encourage them from breaking the law. If they go to a port of entry, they have not broken the law.
But to
they
put
can
them
make
in
their
a
asylum
detention
claim.
center that is inhumane.
They broke the law. Yes, ma'am. We do not exempt classes. We enforce the law.
Inhumanely and cruelly.
Well,
Okay,
I will tell you, actually, they are given not only adequate care in facilities.
You and I will disagree on that point.
But it is much better care than when they're living in the shadows and they're not provided any care after entering our country illegally.
We obviously disagree, and let me just ask you another question, because this committee gets a lot of requests for additional funds to reprogram our funds or transfer funds due to overspending and a lack of fiscal discipline in your department. As you know, Congress, not this administration, sets your budget, and you have to live within the means that we give to you. And to me, far too frequently, it seems a big part of DHS overspending is caused by ICE unnecessarily detaining people, like we talked about, pregnant women. As you know, detention is really expensive. Every year, each year ICE detains someone. It costs taxpayers over $50,000. For comparison, by the way, that's 4 times the amount the federal government spends on each child in our public schools. So what this means is that taxpayers are now footing the bill for food, medical care, clothing, and the expensive prison contracts that ICE is using for detention, like the facility that's in my home state. To me, that's really inexpensible because there are less expensive and more effective alternatives to detention. And in fact, according to your own budget, to use one of the alternatives to detention costs less than $1,500 per year compared to that $50,000. So while you're asking for billions of dollars in additional funds to build the unnecessary border wall, hire more ICE and Border Patrol, expand detention, militarize the border, you're asking to cut funding for alternatives to detention in your budget. So why is the department not asking us to expand the use of alternatives to detention in order to save taxpayer money?
We are looking to do both. So as you know, one of the alternatives to detention is a ankle bracelet. We do utilize those in situations where appropriate. If somebody, however, has broken the law in the sense that there are multiple reentry or they have some other reason to be criminally prosecuted, we actually turn them over to the marshals. We defer them over for prosecution, in which case there is no option for an alternate to detention. So if you look at all the numbers, we are trying to find ways to do it. But I do want to just say again, if you cross in between the ports of entry,
I know what your philosophy is. I'm out of time.
It's not a philosophy. It's a law Congress passed.
Well,
so we should encourage people to go to the ports if they need to come to seek asylum.
And the use of ATD, it seems to me, it's cost payer saving and much more humane.
Thank you. Senator Langford.
All right, so that was Washington Senator Patty Murray, incapable of understanding what law is, and she says right there in the closing that I understand what your philosophy is. She's referring to law. She goes, I understand what your philosophy is. This is the kind of hogwash that politically elected leadership is stating in our state capital.
Honestly, you know, after listening to this, you know, I wasn't a supporter beforehand, but listening to her total disregard of the law, and then to tell a citizen, a law enforcement citizen, that the law that they are upholding is a philosophy. None of my friends support this lady.
Yeah.
And anybody who supports this person, this elected official, for what she just said, it's like similar to what you heard down in Klamath. You know, this isn't going to be a choice anymore. We are going to ignore the law. We don't get to ignore the law. So, you know, if my friends are out there, none of my friends support this person. And if you are elected supporting this person, please step down, because this is not the type of leadership that we need in our nation. Just quit, because if you're supporting this person, you're supporting the ignoring of law.
So what the DHS secretary is talking about is the law. What Patty Murray is talking about is her own philosophy. So let's this is a suggestion for you, Senator Murray. I want you to take your philosophy of the unnecessary border, and I want you to remove all the unnecessary locks off of your house, because there's no reason to have any security. Let people come and go. And for those people who want to come and go, especially if they're pregnant, I hope you're providing them with all the medical care they possibly need, food, lodging, everything else. And then she makes this complaint that she said 50,000 they're spending, you know, per person who's held in detention, and how that compares to school students. It's an absolutely stupid comparison.
This is how. And can I use, I mean, I don't know if I want to say idiotic or...
It's idiotic.
Because she's sitting there saying, listen, Senator Murray, if your friends weren't breaking the law, we wouldn't be spending the $50,000 that you're sitting here complaining about. How simple? It's that simple. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. She needs to take the locks and the doors off of her house. You know, just put mosquito netting up so the bugs aren't coming and going. But she needs to let anybody come and go out of her place as they want, and provide them with all the food and housing. She can take her philosophy and prove how it works. Put signs out in the front yard that say, you know, free lodging. Invite the homeless community over and do this, because you know why these Californians are objecting to the SB 54 down in California is because it's filling up their communities with illegal immigrants. And they mentioned about them welfare benefits, you know, the housing benefits, the medical benefits, all these things that these people are sucking out of U.S. society. For anybody who believes that this is the right thing to do, that allowing these people to come and go and support them and pay money to them and everything else, if you believe that that is the right thing to do, what I think you should do is start building housing in your own backyard. Open up your own home. Pay out of your own pocket for these people and put your money where your mouth is. Prove it. You know what? You don't see any of these people doing this. All they're thinking is that government, which is all the citizens and neighbors around them, should be doing this and should be paying this. And Senator Murray, it's not a philosophy. It's the law. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for the law.
I don't get to ignore the law.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people around me that get away with breaking the law, and they don't have to live up to the law. But it seems like every time that I even think about breaking the law,
why don't you try that the next time? Like if you're out speeding on the highway and you get pulled over by a state patrol officer, you say, "Officer, I get what your philosophy is,
right?
But on going over the speed limit, but you know, my philosophy is my car is capable of going 80, so I should. That's my philosophy." We're just going to have to disagree on philosophies. That's all.
Yeah, at that point, you'll be written a ticket, or you know, the handcuffs.
Oh, you can't be, because law doesn't mean anything.
No, that lady was absolutely right when she says, you know, God forbid somebody try to arrest an illegal alien, because, but you know, little old me, a citizen that's been here forever, you know, do something wrong, and I'm going to get the book thrown at me, and it's just backwards. I mean, we're adjusting our laws now so that they can vote. In other areas of the nation. If you guys cannot connect the dots, then I don't know. I mean, let's just face it. I read an article this morning that said the Midwest has flipped and is now a red. They're back to Republican. You know, pretty much the whole Midwest. You know, everybody that's seeing what they like. So the Democrats are in a real panic. They're losing power, and their people in the progressive left is just killing them more. And they won't stand up to these guys and say, enough, you guys, enough. They just won't do it.
The reason why you earlier were talking about that, and I said specifically the progressive left, the reason why I said that is that there are a ton of Democrats, which are essentially what I call Truman Democrats. And there are a lot of Republicans that are essentially Truman Democrats. And when you look at where people were in this country in terms of every issue you want, put it on the table. And these people largely, they're really the foundation and the underpinning of what this country is and what it was about. And there's a big chunk of those people. That actually represents a really big portion of the population that we have here today. But we have a very noisy minority over on the far left, which is that progressive crowd, who believes that anything and everything should go and could go. And then you have a similar kind of element over on the far right. And the interesting thing is I used to think for a while, years ago, that these are people on the opposite extremes of similar issues, when actually that's not true. When you take the extreme far left and you take the extreme far right, you can just wrap all of that together, and that's the same crowd of people. That is the swamp.
Yeah.
That people are referring to.
And you know what? Again, people like Senator Murray, people shouldn't sit down with her. People shouldn't talk to her until she becomes more, she as a congressperson or a senator, she's supposed to uphold our laws.
That's right. You take an oath to do that.
Right. And until she does that, nobody should be talking to her, especially people who sit across the aisle from her. You know, at some point, we have to stand up and start fighting for what we believe in. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. It's the same thing in Seattle. If none of the big businesses up there do anything about the head tax, if nobody leaves, guess what? Get ready for more taxes, because then they know that they can do this. And every time that they do it, they'll do it unopposed. And this is happening. This is happening. We think it's so important to sit down and try to reach common ground with these people. Some people, you will never change their minds, and they are always going to fight for what they believe in. And that person is pointless to talk to them, because you're not going to change their mind. The best thing you can do is unelect them and get them out there and get a fresh new face in. And that's what needs to happen with Murray.
Well, really what you're referring to is at the bargaining table, you're familiar with the phrase where they say so-and-so is not bargaining in good faith. There's another hidden agenda going on that they're not talking about, that's not on the table. And that's exactly the problem with factions of the political elements, both on the left and the right, is they're not bargaining in good faith. There's always an ulterior motive and something they're not going to talk about, but you guarantee is really the driving thing. Whatever they've said on the surface is just all window washing to get majority of the people to follow them in a given direction. But there's always something else going on.
The head tax, I read. You read the different titles,
by the way, is connected to immigration.
Yeah.
Illegal immigration.
But you read the head tax. It says after great compromise, the Seattle Council decides on a much lower head tax. And I'm looking at this price range going, okay, so it went from 500 to what? $100, 150, 200, 250. I get in the article and it has been lowered to $275. Do you know why $275? Because half was $250, and that extra $25 that they got, the unions can say, hey, we got you guys more. We got you better than half of what you guys were looking at. And the same thing with all these people on the council that support this. They can now tell the people, yeah, we got the better deal on this one, you guys. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for drowning out the voice of the working citizens, and thanks for letting us to steal this money from all these people now.
By the way, that passed with a 9-0 vote. That 275 passed with a 9-0
vote. Well, yeah, the mayor was going to veto it because now remember when I told you that the head tax passed?
That's when it was at $500.
Right. Yeah. And well, come to find out is if one person dissents, one person votes no, then the mayor can veto the whole thing. So that's why she said no on that one, because then that still left the threat of the veto on from her side of it. That's why I told you the head tax passed, and then a couple of days later there was another article that the head tax passed again. Well,
first one was in committee.
Right. First one was in committee where she says, listen, I don't agree with this. So, they come up with this better compromise, and now it's $275. It's still theft, no matter what.
Show the article, if you would, Kyle, on the what they're actually doing with the money.
Yeah, here's the kicker, you guys.
This is hilarious and pathetic all at the same time.
Yeah. So we got to get it up there, but basically they said that they are going to reduce homelessness by 5.5%.
5.5%.
creates 5.5% more affordable housing units. You know what? That what they call an affordable housing unit, apparently to me, is like a McMansion.
Yeah, check this out: $174,000 per unit, and this is 900 units. Yes, 900 units over a course of 5 years. And what do you think?
174,000.
What do you think actually? What do you think the population growth in the homeless community is going to be over the next 5 years with what they're doing in Seattle and making it a sanctuary city?
Well, those are pretty much going to go. It's the same thing. It's the same thing they're going to do here. They declared a housing crisis. We don't have any housing, which is crap. If you drive up and down the streets of Longview and Kelso, you can find empty houses everywhere and empty apartments everywhere. But it's not. It doesn't cater to the people like that they want. They want the people. Yeah.
The other question might be is how big and fat are the salaries of the people who are going to get paid to run all of this?
Well, seriously, I mean, $174,000 to do affordable. That's a joke. I mean, $174,000 is affordable.
Hey, by comparison, on the
I could buy a house here for $174,000.
Hey, but by comparison, on the Red Lake Indian Reservation in northern Minnesota, a gentleman by the name of Raymond James, who happens to own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, donated a big chunk of money to build a number of homes on the Red Lake Reservation. Do you know how much the cost per investment per single family dwelling with actually had a little piece of property and stuff there too, but you know what the cost was per home?
I would say that you would probably want to keep it to like 30, 40, 50,000.
It was $40,000 bucks.
Yeah, right around
40,000 per house, which was a complete single family dwelling, not like these little things which basically are apartments, for lack of a better description. That's what they are. They're multi-family dwellings that they're putting together, and at a cost of $174,000 per unit. See, it doesn't say per house; it's per unit.
This is why they're never going to end the problem.
Yes,
massive money mismanagement, like they have been for the last I don't know how many years since they've declared a housing crisis, like 2015 or something.
Hey, wait a minute though. This is government running this, which we've actually heard from some local political leaders recently here, even in our own community, who have doubts on a completely different issue of private entities running something better than government. This is what government does.
Yeah, I mean, these guys went separate subject, but the same area, of course. This is the same people that went from like $880,000 a mile for bike trails to $12 million per mile.
What was the original number they said?
It's either $680,000 or $860,000 a mile. And by the time that the government got done with it, it was $12 million a mile. Now, we posted that article recently to prove that that is real, because, I mean, any person that has money that holds it dear to them is going to have a serious issue when you go from basically $1 million to $12 million a mile.
You would have a better result if you had like warlords and drug kingpins doing this stuff.
Right. Are these bike lanes paved with gold for Jay Inslee to ride on? I mean, what's the deal here?
There's something wrong with this picture.
And it's the same thing with this.
Kyle, what are your thoughts? You got this mischievous grin on your face. What are your thoughts?
As you are a young guy, you haven't bought a house, you haven't never rented an apartment. What do you think about the pricing and what you're seeing here with your tax money?
Before you answer, though, Kyle, I want to let you know that if we ship you out of the country and then you decline or turn down your citizenship here in the U.S., and then you sneak back in as an illegal immigrant, you can get a free house and health care and money and all of that kind of good stuff.
Same thing if you whack yourself out on heroin.
You see, the left liberals, this is all conspiracy that I just kind of thought up, right? So left liberals, they go to college a lot. So a lot of them are in debt. And usually the thing is, though, you're supposed to get hit by a car and you get them to pay for your college. What they're probably going to do is exactly what you said, escape the country, right? They're going to deny their citizenship, come back illegally, and they're going to get their college paid for, a place to live. They won't have to worry about working. It'll be fine. This is all part of their plan.
There's college kids that are doing the same thing. They
see. It's not too late though, Kyle. You could do it now. You could deny your
Well, see, the problem is that if he tries to go into Canada, they won't let him in because they have really good immigration laws there. And if he tries to go to Mexico, again, they aren't going to let him in because they have really good immigration laws.
It's weird that these other countries have immigration laws, huh? No. They're not laws. They're
right.
philosophies. They're philosophies. Yeah, these doggone immigration philosophies.
Yeah, I'm going to support somebody like that. Yeah. Let's go ahead and sell out completely.
But, I mean, with this tax, it did create 5.5% more affordable housing units. That's 5.5% more than beforehand. So it did some good.
Can I ask a question? Where are all these people going to work that can't afford these houses?
Good question. They're actually going to, the thing is that between now and the next 5 years, potentially they open up some new jobs. Oh, wait, this head tax is going to drive the major employers out of the city. So wait a minute, totally scratch that program. You know what's funny about this is that they apparently don't know what feeds, which hand is feeding this whole deal. And you know what's happened with Seattle's the government spending? You know what's happened with the government spending like over the last decade compared to what the actual growth of population, the growth of business is? The government is by far and away the leader in growth, growing at double or even more than that of where the population actual business is growing. By the billions. It's pretty incredible what's happening up in Seattle.
It's really crazy what's happening around here too.
So
I mean, we're bending over backwards, here because of our housing crisis too. Lexington's about to get 300 more apartment complexes out there, a brand new school. Now, my question is to the people who are paying attention to this. That's a lot of houses or a lot of apartments to put out in Lexington. Once that happens and this new school and all this stuff like that, what are the chances that Lexington gets annexed by either the city of Longview or Kelso? All this money being spent. Is Lexington going to form their own city? Are they going to become their own municipality or whatever, however you say that? Mm-hmm. Or is somebody going to try to annex them? My money's on, I bet you somebody tries to annex Lexington.
But wait, in the city of Kelso, they're not trying to annex anything at all right now. And they haven't been trying to annex anything for a while. And that conversation, based on an interview that I heard recently from one of the Kelso City Council people, is that conversation is off the table.
Oh, it is
not
now.
Off the table, but it's off the table.
No, it'll never be off the table because it will happen someday. Yeah.
Speaking of places and people who give lip service to things, and then do their actions don't match up with their lip service. We want to share with you this brief story. This actually goes back to Bill Clinton's presidency, but we want to share what 3 presidents had to say, whether you agree that. About the United States position as it comes to Israel and Jerusalem is what it is. But we want to share with you what 3 presidents prior to the current president had to say about Jerusalem being the capital of Israel. And then I'll share with you a little bit of law, or maybe it's philosophy background, that happened in 1995, started in 1995, and passed into law in 1999 by the first president who's going to show up on here, none other than Bill Clinton. So go ahead and roll the video, Kyle.
Jerusalem is still the capital of Israel and must remain an undivided city accessible to all.
As soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the United States ambassador to the city of Israel as chosen as its capital.
I continue to say that Jerusalem will be the capital of Israel, and I have said that before, and I will say it again.
And Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided.
We will move the American embassy to the eternal capital of the Jewish people, Jerusalem. Therefore, I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. While previous presidents have made this a major campaign promise, they failed to deliver. Today, I am delivering. I've judged this course of action to be in the best interests of the United States of America and the pursuit of peace between Israel and the Palestinians. This is a long overdue step to advance the peace process and to work towards a lasting agreement.
Okay, you got us unmuted?
Yep.
All right, so for people who say, well, Clinton didn't actually say we should move the embassy there to Jerusalem.
Obama.
Well, no, I'm going back to Bill Clinton.
Oh, okay, all right.
They'll say that Bill Clinton didn't actually say that we should move the embassy there. All he said was that recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And then they'd say the same thing about Obama, that all he said was that, you know, Jerusalem stands undivided and that the U.S. recognizes them as the capital of the... So this is all lip service. So let's go back to when you're wondering, you know, what's the context of what people are talking about. There was a philosophy that was passed in 1990. Oh, wait a minute. I mean, a law that was passed in...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This philosophy in 1995 called a law. Thank you, Senator Patty Murray, for giving us that new word.
Oh, yeah, we're going to use that a lot.
It was called the Jerusalem Embassy Act. Now, let's not get confused here. It's called the Jerusalem Embassy Act. It was passed in 1995. And this law required that the U.S. Embassy be moved to the city of Jerusalem by 1999. Now, this law was put into effect and passed and signed by President Clinton.
We made a law. I mean, we had
made
to make
a law,
law,
and the law is titled Jerusalem Embassy Act, or as Patty Murray would refer to this as the Jerusalem Embassy Philosophy.
Philosophy.
Yeah, and this
Word
was
of the day.
This was passed in
Philosophy.
Philosophy. Yes,
replacing the word law with philosophy.
Yes. So this was passed into philosophy in 1995, and the Jerusalem Embassy Philosophy was supposed to be, it was required by philosophy to be moved, the embassy to be moved to Jerusalem by 1999. But this hasn't happened because every 6 months, the presidents have signed, every successive president has signed a waiver to keep the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. Now, let me share something with you guys. Do you know why the embassy is always in the capital city? Any foreign embassy that we have in any country, anywhere around the world, do you know why it's in the capital city?
Why? So that we can get to the meetings faster, Kevin.
Because that's where all the diplomats are, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Everybody's there. That's where the meetings are held. That's where the policy is decided. That's where everything is at.
Kind of on the same level. That's why when the House and the Senate is in session, that's why they have all these offices around that Olympia building for all of these representatives and these senators, because I mean, it hardly makes sense to house them in respective cities, you know, all around the state, does it? It makes sense for them to be right there. So, first of all, that's one.
Seattle.
Okay, that's just one of the reasons why the embassy is there. What's the other reason? One of the big reasons, if not the biggest reason. Do you think security at the embassy is at all important? I know for some people security wasn't important at all.
Yeah, I was just going to say Benghazi security wasn't important to Hillary
Not important
Clinton.
at all.
Yeah. So.
But why do you think the embassy is in the capital city? Because the capital city is rarely, if ever, attacked. And there's also additional security forces in the capital city as well. So they do this for two reasons. We have our ambassadors overseas in a foreign country, mixed in with a foreign government, visiting with a foreign government. Makes sense for them to be as with a close proximity as possible to those the foreign government, and for their own security and safety and livelihood, they need to be there. So the embassies have always been in the capital city of that foreign country. And the fact that these candidates, when people say, well, that's not really what they were saying, they were simply saying that Jerusalem is the capital city, and they weren't necessarily implying that the embassy should be there as well. Well, folks, Bill Clinton passed this philosophy in 1995 called the Jerusalem Embassy Act. It required by law that the embassy be moved to Jerusalem since 1999. And every president, including Clinton, including George Bush Jr., or George W., if you want to call him. In fact, he came out, he wasn't trying to hide the words or mince the words. He just says, when I get into office, this is going to happen. He said that in 2000. Did not happen. Then in 2008, Obama gave this lip service. He gave it lip service again in 2012. And President Trump was the first president to actually say that in a campaign and then deliver on it when he became president.
You mean
interesting?
Another campaign promise that he lived up to? My gosh, this guy is just... I can't believe anybody likes this guy.
Yeah, you know what's funny about all of this is, so for people who say, well, we were kind of postponing all of this because, it had to do with the Palestinian-Israel conflict and, we were trying to be peacekeeper and all of that. How long has the Palestinian-Israeli conflict been going on?
Thousands of years.
Forever. And was supposedly the delaying of the embassy a strategy that helped this process?
It was a political move. It's always been political.
It's as good now as it probably ever has been. And the embassy is going to Jerusalem.
To me, this cements our relationship with Israel, because Israel is one of the only nations that we can trust over there.
So my point with all of this wasn't to say I'm a huge advocate for the embassy being in Jerusalem. I'm simply saying that this was something that nothing but lip service was given to for 24 straight years of presidential candidates and people elected to president. And Donald Trump was actually the first person to say it and then actually do it.
It just amazes me. I don't know why this should be important to me. Apparently it should be, but I can tell you that if this is, if they were looking at putting an embassy in anywhere else in the world, it wouldn't be an issue.
And by the way, in 1993, President Clinton said, and I quote, "I have always wanted to move our embassy to West Jerusalem. We have a designated site there." Oh, so in 1993, they already has a designated site for the embassy in Jerusalem.
Let's hope it's not the Temple Mount.
I have not done so because I didn't want to do anything to undermine our ability to help broker a secure and fair, lasting peace for Israelis and Palestinians.
There's just... Listen, I know...
Again, the old BS meter is going off.
There's never going to be peace over there. It's just not... I mean, there's always going to be conflict, you guys, no matter what.
And then George Bush in 2000 said, "Something will happen when I'm president. As soon as I take office, I'll begin the process of moving the U.S. ambassador to the city Israel has chosen as its capital." Apparently he thought they chose Tel Aviv. Because he did say Jerusalem in his statement. Maybe he thought they chose Tel Aviv. Anyway, so enough on all of that nonsense. What's going on our local calendar, Kyle?
Well,
Frankenstein is all done.
Frankenstein is all done. I hope everyone came and went and watched. It was actually pretty fun. I did not expect that level performance.
Speaking of shows, my Aunt Thelma, hello Thelma, you and Ray might be watching today. Thelma turned 90 on the 14th, but we still had a big family get together on Saturday out there. And right after that evening, my wife had set this up with one of her voice students, Abby, and Stephanie and I and Jackie and Allison, we went to go watch Charlie Brown, which was put on by the Rainier High School. And that was actually really well done. You
mean you didn't go see Frankenstein?
I didn't see Frankenstein, no. I was not convinced by Kyle's sales pitch. He needs to get more convincing. No, my kids wanted to see Charlie Brown. Apparently Charlie Brown is more interesting than Frankenstein to a 3-year-old. And I had to let the cast know after the show was over that this little voice that was in the audience after each of the scenes would close, who was going, woohoo!
Here's some breaking KATU news. Apparently, President Trump hosted a roundtable on California sanctuary state status. That might be worth talking about on another day.
We will visit. We'll take a look at that and visit about it.
He should definitely hook up with those two ladies that were testifying. Oh, and we got to find out whether they passed that or not, because that would have been the first. Remember, that was going to be the first city to say, you know what, Boy, ours is heating up too, you know. Our sanctuary status. We oh boy.
Okay,
no, I
so
was told our
the-
funding would not get cut. We're just Longview Kelso, and that our funding wouldn't get cut. I mean, all 3 commissioners told me our funding wouldn't get cut. And guess what's going on? Sheriff's funding is getting cut. If these guys would just listen to me just every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Just every once in a while. I was definitely right about that one.
Mm-hmm.
They laughed at me, laughed me off. Thought I was attacking the sheriff. No. We have a president that says what he's going to do and then does what he says he's going to do. And, you know, if he says he's going to cut the funding, he's going to cut the funding. That's exactly what he did.
Well, according to Senator Patty Murray, who her philosophy is that she disagrees with everything. I guess that's cool. Well, I guess we're going to conclude with that here on Northwest Judicial News. To quote the mainstream media, who did this by orchestration from one network to the